it does intrigue me that the Federal Security Services of the Russian Federation, known as the FSB, designated me as a target in July 2020, which means that I am constantly being watched while I am in the street by Russian satellites. Indeed, there seem to be at least 3 or 4 Russian satellites over Warminster at the moment, which is very interesting to consider, which means that the Russian intelligence services are engaged in massive data collection of Warminster. Indeed, this is all being done in connection with elements of defense intelligence who are pro-Soviet in their sympathies and are operating out of the Warminster military base. It's also interesting to consider that I am designated as a targeted individual by the British intelligence services also. Therefore, there are British satellites above Warminster at the moment watching me too. And I am under 24-hour surveillance from both the Russian intelligence services and the British intelligence services, which is all really quite interesting. It's really quite complimentary that the intelligence services of two nations are prepared to spend so much money, time, and manpower on a lunatic. It's really quite interesting to consider that simply, I'm a psychotic human being. I am a lunatic. That is all I am. But the intelligence services of two nations seem to have taken an interest in me. And I'm not entirely sure of the reasons why. Indeed, the Masonic lodges around here dislike me because of my exposures of the Wiltshire police systems, what with the interconnectivity between the Wiltshire police systems and the Masonic lodges being so strong. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider that the entire UK police force is a Masonic setup. Indeed, 98% of police officers are Freemasons, so it's basically a cult. The British police is a Masonic cult given to devil worship, baby sacrifice, and the mass ritual rape of toddlers. And this says a lot about the British police as a whole. They are rapists, they are sadists, they are murderers of babies, and they are ritual rapists of toddlers. That is the nature of the British police. They are a terrible entity. Much of the police activity is also coordinated by intelligence services, so it's all interlinking. Indeed, British intelligence are some of the most vile people on the planet. Although British intelligence has been heavily penetrated by the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst and the KGB GRU continuums, British intelligence as a standalone operating outfit is also truly evil and truly nefarious in its basic premises. So it's all very interesting, and a lot of the evil that is at the root of the British intelligence establishment is connected to the Royal Arch Freemason agenda. And there are a lot of crossovers between the agendas of the Royal Arch Freemasons of British intelligence, the Nazi occult orders of the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst intelligence web, and the KGB GRU continuums. Indeed, one of the main attributes that interconnects all of these networks is the influence of Freemasonry. And many of the majority of the intelligence cells of these networks operative are organized into Masonic or quasi-Masonic lodges, basically. Indeed, not all of the Masonic lodges are under the domination of the United Grand Lodge of England, for instance. So it's very interesting to consider. Indeed, the Nazi continuum Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst have their own Templar lodges, which are similar in structure to the Royal Arch Freemason lodges, but they are not under the jurisdiction of the Royal Arch Freemason lodges. Indeed, this is the same situation in Russia. And the situation in Russia is that Russia is controlled by networks of Sabbateans and Illuminists. Indeed, there is a lot of crossover between Sabbateans and Illuminists. Indeed, many of the original Illuminati were themselves Sabbatean. Though there does seem to be a bit of a proxy conflict between Sabbatean elements and white guy elements all across the Illuminati pyramid. So it's all quite interesting to consider. Indeed, the Sabbateans have attempted to gain the ascendancy, and white guy elements have basically formed their own networks to stop the complete Sabbatean takeover, even though these white guy elements are also inherently evil in their premises and are basically operative for the same goal as the Sabbatean element. So I guess the key is to decoding the Illuminati. Is it a Sabbatean network? I don't know if this is actually the case, because the majority of the Bavarian Illuminati were actually German heritage operatives and were interconnected with the Mad Housekeepers Guild, a network of psychiatrists operating out of Germany, who had their most important and crucial meeting in Bremen in 1756, which basically decided the fate of the West and the implementation of a psychiatric state that is now beginning to be erected in Western civilization. So it's all very interesting indeed. The networks of Sabbateans that took over Russia in the period 1776 to 1912 were interconnected with Bavarian Illuminati elements, though I'm not entirely sure they were standalone Bavarian Illuminati elements. And they seem to have their own networks operating. The Sabbateans have their own intelligence continuum, which seems to be slightly distinct from the Bavarian Illuminati networks. Indeed, the Bavarian Illuminati networks have now basically been absorbed into the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. Indeed, it could be argued that the Bavarian Illuminati coordinate the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst via networks of insinuating brethren operatives, and the majority of the insinuating brethren do tend to be of German heritage as opposed to Hebrew Sabbatean. So it's all very interesting to consider the fact that the Sabbateans have their own networks that do often interlink with the KGB. Indeed, there are many crossovers between the Mossad and the KGB. And a lot of these networks are engaged in the blackmail of Western politicians to basically coordinate the activities of the Western governments in line with Sabbatean agendas. Indeed, it seems that the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst continuum does seem to be the Illuminati continuum, whereas the activities of the Mossad and the KGB, despite having certain elements of Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst continuum operations within their operations, it seems that the KGB and the Mossad are actually of a Sabbatean continuum. So there is basically a conflict between the Nazi continuum and the Sabbatean continuum, which is interesting to consider considering global dialectics. Indeed, Israel and Russia seem to be coordinated by an overarching Sabbatean continuum operation, whereas Germany and the United States are coordinated by a Nazi Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst continuum, and Britain is kind of caught in the middle. Well, with such networks as the Order of Nine Angles, operating out of Shropshire, being key Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst operatives. Indeed, the Order of Nine Angles spreads all across Europe and North America, and is very prominent in Russia and Ukraine through such networks as the Maniac Murder Mayhem cult, who are basically sadists and rapists operating for the Gladio 2 program. However, the supposed antithesis to this, i.e. the Putin government, which claims to be against the Rothschilds, is actually part of a Sabbatean continuum intelligence operation, what with Putin himself being of Sabbatean Frankist heritage through his mother. Zelensky is also a Sabbatean too, so it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, much of the activities in the Ukraine war seem to be proxy conflicts between Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst continuum intelligence operations and Sabbatean intelligence operations. Indeed, it does seem that there is a dialectic within the intelligence world between the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, which is made up of the various consortiums and cartel arrangements of the Nazi corporations, intermixed with the Nazi intelligence structure and various networks of satanic cults and covens. And they seem to be in a dialectical conflict with these Sabbatean networks, who are coordinated by people of Hebrew heritage, operating out of Israel and Russia. So it's all very interesting to consider. There is a false conflict going on at the moment between the GRU and the Israeli state. Indeed, this is all intelligence, machinations, and dialectics at work. Indeed, there is a false conflict between the GRU and the Israeli state because the coordinators of the GRU and the Israeli state are both Sabbatean. So it's a false conflict indeed. The Sabbateans are aligned in one agenda despite their infighting. The Sabbateans are operative to basically destroy the Nazi continuum, interestingly. Indeed, the Sabbatean networks actually infiltrated the German Workers' Party and corrupted elements of it. So it's all very interesting to consider that there is a dialectical conflict going on between Sabbatean networks and Nazi continuum networks, despite many of the public figures of the Nazi Party, such as Hitler, Himmler, Hess, Goebbels, etc., being of Sabbatean heritage. It's all very interesting to consider the fact that these weren't the real people running the Nazis. Indeed, there was a black ops intelligence chamber basically coordinating the activities of the Nazis, and this was connected to what became the Abwehr and forms the basis of what is today the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst. Indeed, the Bavarian Illuminati, as well as elements of the Asiatic Brethren, were incorporated into this structure, which also included the New Order of Templars and the Ordo Templi Orientis. So it's all very interesting. Indeed, it seems that the Nazi continuum, Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst networks, and the dialectical conflict they're having with the Soviet, Israeli, Mossad, KGB, GRU elements are attempting to both gain control of British Freemasonry and therefore the British Crown, which is very interesting to consider. Indeed, this is an intelligence war going on between these various disparate elements, and there's rumors of disappearances of prominent local officials around this area, which seems to be connected to this ongoing intelligence war. Indeed, the dialectic itself that's going on in my head, what with British intelligence and Russian intelligence attempting to coordinate my soul, it's interesting to consider that the majority of the programming put in me by British intelligence was neo-Nazi programming, which means the operatives of British intelligence who have programmed me were Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst continuum people. And the Russian programming that I underwent was most probably connected to Sabbatean networks. So there's basically a conversation, a conflict going on within my head between neo-Nazi and Sabbatean elements, which is all very interesting considering I'm not on board with the agenda of either the neo-Nazis or the Sabbateans. So it's all very interesting to consider indeed. Regarding the Russian intelligence services, the Sabbateans run the show. Basically, the Donme cult is running the Russian intelligence services, and any ethnic Russian operatives that begin to figure out what is going on are usually purged. So every few years there is a purge within the Russian intelligence services, coordinated by the Sabbatean networks running the Russian intelligence services. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, British intelligence seems to be Sabbatean these days. What with the KGB, GRU elements having taken over the British intelligence services, therefore the Sabbatean elements via Frankist continuums of the Asiatic Brethren do run British intelligence. Though there are Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst networks within British intelligence, such as the IG Farben NW7 faction surrounding Blaise Metrovelli. But this seems to be an ongoing dialectic between the Nazi and Sabbatean networks. Indeed, it may turn out to be that all of their interests are aligned for one goal, coordinated by a network of British Freemasons, but I have yet to come to a complete conclusion on these matters. Indeed, the GIU may not actually be the ones who are beaming at me. It may be the Wiltshire police, but I haven't quite worked out exactly what is going on with the radiation. Indeed, it would be interesting to consider the fact that Wiltshire police are irradiating me, considering I am a mental patient. And if they're prepared to do this to a mental patient, they're prepared to do anything to anyone. Indeed, as I've stated, they tied me up and psychologically tortured me for 30 to 45 minutes while I was severely psychotic. So Wiltshire police are prepared to do anything to maintain their illusions of decency, really. They're prepared to do anything to maintain the supposed trust they have of the population, which is now waning, which is a good thing. Indeed, we need to basically restart the entire society, not in the vein of the Great Reset that the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, Templar Continuums, and even Sabbateans are stating, but in some other way, there needs to be an overhaul of the entire system, because what is going on is really quite terrible indeed. There is so much corruption inherent within the British police that it's all a very interesting situation to consider. Indeed, it does seem that the Russian intelligence services at the top levels are coordinated by Sabbateans, what with the Sabbateans basically taking over the lodges in Russia between the years 1776 and 1912. So the communist hierarchy of the Soviet Union was basically entirely Sabbatean in its top leadership. So it's all very interesting to consider that many Russian intelligence operatives are aware of this shadow network, this shadow entity coordinating the activities of Russia, but they're not entirely sure who they are. There's always been rumors that this shadow entity were Hebrews, but it's not as simple as that. These are Sabbateans. These are followers of the pseudo-messiah Sabbatai Tzvi. And it's interesting to consider that also Hitler seems to have been a Romaniote from a sect of Donmer that were Greek-speaking. Indeed, the Romaniotes seem to have the same moustaches as Hitler, which is all very interesting to consider. He was sort of placed in the position as leader by a Sabbatean network who kind of wished to coordinate the activities of Nazi Germany in accord with certain programs operated by British Freemasons. Indeed, it seems that the British Freemasons themselves have a conflict with the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst, what with the British Freemasons having more affinity towards the Sabbatean continuum operations. So it's all very interesting to consider how these networks are interlinking and trisecting and connecting and then disconnecting. So it's all a very strange state of affairs. Indeed, the intelligence world seemed to live in a parallel world to the rest of society. And the way they organize themselves is very interesting. It's all very interesting to consider. And it's very difficult to really work out what is going on. Is the conflict between the Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst and the Sabbateans real or not? Or is it an illusion? And everything's coordinated by British Freemasons? I do not know. Indeed, who was Albert Pike working for? Was it German intelligence or British intelligence? This is the question. Or were British intelligence and German intelligence working on schemes together? This I cannot answer because I don't have access to Masonic archives or intelligence archives. I'm merely trying to figure out what is going on through occasional public domain research and the information database within my head. So it's basically all of the theories need to be taken into consideration, and we need to really work something out here. So I'm going to continue to attempt to work these things out. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there.